How do REST and RPC API designs use HTTP methods? Imagine you're sending a message to a server, but instead of just talking, you're using specific actions that tell the server exactly what you want to do. That's where HTTP methods come into play. They are the verbs that define the kind of operation you're asking for. Now, in the world of application programming interfaces, or APIs, there are two main styles that use these methods differently: REST and Remote Procedure Call. REST stands for Representational State Transfer, and RPC is Remote Procedure Call. Both use HTTP methods, but they do so in distinct ways to serve different purposes. In REST API design, each URL points to a resource, like a user or an order. The HTTP methods tell the server what to do with that resource. For example, GET is used to fetch data without changing anything. If you send a GET request to a URL, you get information back, and nothing on the server changes. It's safe and can be repeated without side effects. POST is used to create a new resource or trigger an action. Sending a POST request with data creates a new user or submits an order. It's not idempotent, which means sending it multiple times might create multiple users or duplicate orders. PUT updates an existing resource or creates it if it doesn't exist. If you send the same PUT request twice, the resource stays the same. Patch is used for making partial updates to a resource, like changing just the email address of a user. Delete removes a resource, and doing it multiple times has the same effect as doing it once. REST APIs relying on these specific uses of HTTP methods to keep things simple, predictable, and aligned with how the web works. RPC API design, on the other hand, is more about calling functions or procedures on the server. Instead of focusing on resources, it focuses on actions. Here, HTTP methods are used more flexibly. Usually, RPC APIs use POST for most operations because POST can carry detailed instructions and parameters for the remote procedure. For example, if you want to run a calculation or start a process, you send a POST request with the command and data. Sometimes, GET or PUT might be used, but less often, depending on how the API is built. The main idea is that RPC APIs treat HTTP as a transport layer for commands, not necessarily to manipulate resources. From a backend developer's point of view, understanding these differences makes designing APIs clearer. REST APIs make it easy for developers to understand what each URL and method does because they follow the HTTP standards. RPC APIs give more flexibility but may need extra documentation to explain what each endpoint does. When building REST APIs, use GET for fetching data, POST for creating, PUT or patch for updates, and delete for removing resources. This makes your API predictable and easy to work with. For RPC APIs, use POST to send commands with parameters, especially for complex actions that don't fit into simple resource models. In the end, REST APIs use HTTP methods to clearly describe resource actions, making things straightforward and consistent. RPC APIs use HTTP mainly as a way to send commands, often relying heavily on POST. Knowing these patterns helps you create backend systems that are easy to understand, maintain, and use.